Welcome to Her and Boss, the podcast designed to help you find your inner entrepreneur. Her and Boss is brought to you by recent graduates, Anissa, Lucy, Megan, Ben, Sarah, and me, Nikki, as we enter our careers and speak to the inspiring women who can help us along the way. Hey everyone, this is your host Nikki, and today I'm joined again by Niamh Crawford-Walker. Niamh is a qualified career coach and the founder of #Goals, a coaching and personal development consultancy. In addition to one-to-one coaching, Niamh has also written The Confident Creative, a step-by-step guide to help you set and achieve your career goals. You might remember Niamh from a Minisode in season 1, where she helped us understand how to identify our skills and passions when defining our career path. Today, she's back telling us all about how to set, define, and achieve life-changing career goals. Enjoy! This minisode was sponsored by Barclays Eagle Labs. Eagle Labs is on a mission to increase the number of female founders in the UK by providing access to the networks, mentors, and co-working spaces needed to help innovators and businesses thrive. Hi, Niamh.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you doing? Welcome back.
Yeah, good to be back. Thanks for having me.
We're so excited. So obviously it's coming towards the end of the year. 2020's been an interesting one, and then kind of gearing up for next year. And we wanted to have you on to talk about goals, which I know is a huge focus area for you. It's even kind of in your company name, #goals. So I think you're definitely the expert on this one. But just to kind of bring it all the way back to basics, it would be good if you could help us define what a goal is and how it differs from the New Year's resolutions, which I'm sure a lot of us are going to set for next year.
Yeah, so I find with New Year's resolutions, a lot of them can be made out of panic or out of answering to other people's expectations or maybe our own expectations of what we think our life should look like. Should can be a dodgy word because it's not necessarily based on what you actually want and what's important to you and the kind of life that you're building and the kind of career that you're building. Because goals are very personal. If they're not personal, they're not going to stick. And I think the big thing with a goal is having an emotional connection to it. So let's say, for example, you decide you are someone who's into New Year's resolutions. I'm not, despite how much I love goals. But let's say that you've decided as a New Year's resolution that you want to work on your fitness, which tends to be a big one for people.
Yeah, every year. That's
yeah.
my New Year's resolution.
Yeah. And how does that go for you?
Not so well.
Yeah. So what usually happens is we choose this goal of like, I'm going to be so much healthier this year. I'm going to work on my fitness and my health and look after my body and it's going to be great. And you just leave it there. But you forget, you need to actually dig deeper and be like, okay, well, why do I want to work on my fitness? When I say I want to work on my fitness or I want to be healthier, what does that mean? New Year's resolutions are fine if you've taken the normal structures of setting a goal. So you've thought about like why it's important to you and you've connected to it on an emotional level. You've thought about how you're going to actually go about it. And also you've clarified what being fitter means, like specifically what that means. So taking that improve your fitness example, what does improving your fitness mean? What does being fitter look like? Does that mean going for a run 3 times a week? Does that mean joining a new gym and going to a class every Monday morning? You need to find a way to clarify it and to make it measurable and to make it sustainable and something that you can track progress on. What defines a goal is the measurable element. It is the emotional connection and the why behind it and why it's important to you.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point. And I'm someone who doesn't really set New Year's resolutions, but when I do, they're always around what other people are doing and what I think I should be doing to kind of be in line for that. So
Exactly.
if it's, improve fitness or eat less of a certain food or, learn a new language, I say that every single year and my language abilities are exactly the same. And you started to answer this question anyway, but what are some things that you should keep in mind when setting goals? So some of the things you mentioned earlier were having kind of an emotional purpose or connection to the goal, setting something that's kind of specific and measurable. Is there anything else?
Yeah, so just to take it a step back from what I said in terms of making them specific, I always think the best place to start before you set any goals is to go a bit airy-fairy, daydream, big vision. So say it is for the next year. So people who are thinking about 2021, think about the next 12 months and just daydream about it and sit down, make yourself a cup of tea. I quite like to do it as a meditation, but I know that's not for everyone. And it's just like kind of getting quiet with yourself, grabbing a pen and paper, grabbing a journal, and just thinking, okay, well, if these next 12 months could be my dream year, what do I want to do? What do I want to happen? What do I want to achieve? How do I want to feel? All of those like big picture things that aren't yet tied to the specific goals. And then once you have the big picture, it's easier to break those down into specific goals. So say like part of that thing is working on your fitness again. And then I don't know why that's clearly on my mind. And then you've then got that into like, okay, well, that's something that's important. Let's break that down and identify it as a specific goal. And I talk about this a lot on Instagram. I actually did this a few months ago. And it's taking that big vision and breaking them down to 10 goals. And this is something that I mentioned within my ebook, and at this point probably the planner will be out, which is called The Confident Creative. And a big part of that first section in building your vision is doing the big picture part and then breaking it into the 10 dreams. And these 10 dreams are things that if they all came together, they would make up that big vision. And then, as I said before, there's the emotional connection. So you've got to ask why you want it. What will that do for you? How will that benefit other people, like those around you? How will that benefit your life? And it's kind of, I always think that when it comes to setting goals, you've got to be able to answer the so what question. So it's asking yourself like, so what if I achieve this? So what if this goes well? Keep questioning down, because although that sounds a bit tedious, it's also like going to make the world of difference in maintaining the motivation to keep going with the goal. And as we were saying, like with New Year's resolutions, we do tend to drop off a bit because we've just made them in the heat of the moment because we feel like we're supposed to. But if you connect to why you want that thing, what it means for you, and why that's actually important to you, you're going to stick at it. And you're going to, when you have those moments of self-doubt or moments of like, oh, I can't really be bothered to go to the gym this evening, or I can't really be bothered to go to that new language class this evening, you're able to dial it back to the emotion and be like, yes, but although I don't really want to now, when I'm there, A, I'll feel better, and B, I know I'm working towards my bigger goals that are really important to me. So that's the other part. So the big picture, breaking them down specifically, connecting to the why, and then it's breaking them down into the action steps. And then I always say, once you've achieved the goal, that's not it. Like, then you got to reward yourself, and then you got to celebrate, and you got to take the time to be like, yes, I worked really hard for this. I have the thing that I've got. I'm so grateful to myself for working hard. I'm so grateful that this is whatever insert goal has happened.
Yeah.
And it's showing that gratitude. And also just like, just when you were a kid and you did good things and you got a gold star, like
bring that back.
Yeah. So like sometimes what I'll do is like, I keep a little rewards list, and I was chatting to my friends about this recently, and I was asking because I like to know what other people's rewards would be. And you can have big things and you can have small things. Maybe it's like, I recently bought the one of those oil diffusers, and that was a reward thing for me for hitting sales target. And then there'll be other things that like there's big things on there, like it's always like it can be big or small, but as long as there's something attached to that sense of achievement, because you remember that in your brain.
No, definitely. I think that's so important, and I love that kind of the first step to making a goal isn't just thinking about what you want to achieve. It's like, what's your vision? How do you want to feel? And it came up in a Minisode earlier this season where we were talking about how when you're like feeling pressured to be productive, you put a lot of your self-worth and your value in what you've achieved and what you've actually done, but it should be more about how you feel. So your goal should be to like get you to a place where you kind of feel most confident, or you feel like your best self. So I think that's a much better way to look at it, rather than just every year me saying I'm going to go to the gym more.
Another exercise that is just like a really simple thing that can get the kind of cogs going, because I know sometimes I obviously love talking about goals, and I could talk about them all day, and I love achieving goals and I love setting goals, but I do know that sometimes, especially in the winter, especially given the year we've just had, you can feel like stuck in a rut, and you can feel a bit stuck, and you want to change, but you don't really know how to get yourself out or what you actually want to change. And it's just like too foggy to even set the goals. So what you can do, and it's like you could do this at any point, but it particularly helps if you're in a bit of a funk, is get a piece of paper and then write down, so the 3 different sections. So I want to be, I want to have, and I want to do. So you just have your 3 different sections and write down at least 3 in each one. So say I want to be confident in the work that I do, and I want to have a certain amount of clients each month, and I want to do monthly girls' nights with my best friends. Things like that, you know?
Definitely. I love that. And then I guess the follow-up question would be, how do you track your progress and keep yourself accountable?
The thing is, like with tracking progress, I think makes it sound like a bit intense and clinical, and it doesn't have to be. It could be really fun. But the reality is that if you want to achieve something, you have to focus on that thing. You have to keep remembering what it is you're working towards. Like, there's no point sitting and writing some goals at the start of the year and never looking at them again, because you may have ticked off a few, but you'll probably get to like October next year and think, oh yeah, remember that? I never actually did that. Why didn't I do that? But it's because you just like wrote it down and put it away, or you thought about it once and put it away and just took for granted that it would happen. And what's interesting is then by writing them out every day, first of all, when you write down a goal, you're 42% more likely to achieve it, which is like a study by, I want to say Dr. Gail Matthews. And what blows my mind about that is like, if a doctor told you that XYZ would increase your chances of recovery by 42%, like surely I'd like to think most people would do it. Yeah. So why wouldn't you take 2 minutes to write down your goals every day, once a week, whatever you can fit in? But it's just that constant like reminding yourself what it is you're working towards, and that forces your brain to really like zone in and have that kind of eye on the prize at all times. And it's part of the reticular activating system, so your RAS, and that is basically a filter that tells your brain what information is important and what opportunities are important and things like that. So whenever you're constantly either reading out what goals you've set, looking at a vision board, or writing those goals every day, you're telling your brain what it is that you want. And like, it can be as simple as taking 5 minutes at the start of your day to look at your goals and to write them out. Or another way to do it is using a vision board, because obviously it depends on what kind of learner you are. If you're a very, very visual learner, it's going to resonate. A vision board is going to resonate better with your brain than writing things out every day. And at the end of the day, you want to go with what's easiest for you and what comes most naturally. So with a vision board, like, put it where you can see it. Always have your goals where you can see it, either, like I said, in the journal or having that vision board. So like what I do is I will make my vision board, I'll print it out and put it somewhere that you can see it. So I print out 2 copies, and I have one, well, I used to have one just above my desk, like on the wall that was behind my desk, right in my eye line. So every time I'm like at my laptop and you start daydreaming out the window, you see that vision board and you're like, oh yes, back to work. But I also had it above my dressing table, you know, where I'd sit and do my makeup in the morning. So then when you're kind of daydreaming, just waking up in the morning, you're seeing that front and center. But you could also put it inside your wardrobe door or beside your bed at night. So before you turn out the light at night, just taking 2 minutes to look over that vision board and remember what those goals mean and what it is that you're working towards. But it's just like looking at that and thinking, and looking at those big goals and thinking, okay, like, what can I do today, tomorrow, this week, that's going to help me keep moving forward with that? What can I do today to take a step closer to that goal, to making that happen?
Yeah, I love that. I feel like that makes the whole idea of goal setting less intimidating when you kind of start with the big vision and your purpose, which is something that's going to kind of give you energy and make you happy anyway. And then just start breaking that down into goals and then actionable steps. And then this idea of not even necessarily tracking your progress, but just finding the ways to stay focused. And if you've connected it back to that big vision or purpose anyway, then you're going to feel energized to do it, and it's not like a chore. So yeah, I love that. I think it's great. So thank you so much for coming on and helping us get set and ready for 2021.
You're welcome. I hope it's inspired some people to think differently about their goals this year.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to find us on LinkedIn or Instagram at Her Own Boss Podcast, and let us know how you'll be putting these tips and tricks to work.